Hello, my name is Tyler Constable, and welcome to the Avantra weekly demonstration. I'm one of the solution architects here at Avantra and looking forward to showing you around. So we've got a short amount of time, so let's get right to it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about who it is we are, what it is that we do. So we'll kick off with a brief overview. We'll then get into a little bit about architecture. We'll talk about monitoring, which is really where we came from, and it's the core foundation of everything that we do, including the next step into automations, which really, again, if you don't have a core foundation of the monitoring, you can't really do much with the automation. From there, we'll get into our kernel updates, and we'll end it with dashboards. And again, we've got a short period of time, so we're not going to show everything that we do today. So if you want to see more at the end, I've got some ways that you can contact us. We'd love to be able to sit down with you, talk about some of your needs, whether it's monitoring, automation, transparency, what have you, and see if we can help and give you a tailored demonstration, maybe for 60 minutes or 90 minutes. So Avantra really is focusing on three main pillars of your SAP ecosystem. There's the operational transparency, which is your customizable dashboards. What we have here is business process technical monitoring. We call it business services. It's a very technical spin on business processes. We're not going to talk about that today, but again, I'm happy to show you that on a one-off if necessary. The ability to customize reports and have them automatically sent out, building out notifications, and not just blasting out monitoring notifications, right? You don't want alert fatigue. That's something we hear a lot about. That's not the way Avantra works. We can actually build out escalation paths and so on and so forth as well. We'll talk a little about actionable insights. So, being able to base those alerts and make them intelligent to make sure they're going to the right people at the right time. Looking at audit and governance things. So maybe not from a GRC standpoint, we slightly get in there, but not much. But also there's that area where there's, cybersecurity, then there's SAP user security, and then there's that area in the middle that often gets overlooked. So are the admin users, the credentials that come out of the box with SAP, are those locked down? Do they have, a well-known password across any of the clients, things of that nature? Looking at predictive resources as well, so not just where trending of, OS metrics from the history, from the standpoint of, what's happened in the past, which is a lot of what graphing and charting is. And yes, we can do that, but also looking out into the future as well. And then lastly, from a full stack automation, looking at the public clouds, so Google, AWS, Azure, and Alibaba, letting Avantra be able to use those capabilities to scale out SAP. So I'll talk about that a little bit today too. So a lot of great things that Avantra can do to help with your SAP landscape and ecosystem. So from a compatibility standpoint, in the top left, when it comes to notifications and ability to talk outbound, yes, we can send out notifications, text, email, write to flat files, push things out. We can utilize some of AWS's service, AWS's notification services. Really, any third-party APIs, if you've got a third-party solution with APIs, we can help push data out to those as well. And last, we've got some fantastic integration with ServiceNow, some things in the SAP world in ServiceNow that's not being done anywhere else. And we'd love to be able to talk to you about that if you are a ServiceNow shop. Going to the top right corner, in here we've got a lot of the SAP components and capabilities that we've got native monitoring and automation for. I won't go through all of these. The important thing to note is, if it's one of the major components, whether it's BW, CRM, PI, MII, we've got pre-built checks ready to go. It could be Trex, it could be Java, it could be AWAP, it could be business objects. It might not even be something SAP-wise that is on-prem or in public cloud. It could be a SaaS solution like Ariba, SuccessFactors, Concur, maybe non-SAP like Salesforce. All right, so all those things, if it's got APIs, we can connect in and do some monitoring there. In the bottom right, what platforms does it work on? Anything that SAP can run on, whether it's OS or database, we've got pre-built native checks ready to go. Lastly, from an integration standpoint, the public cloud providers that we've got direct APIs in beyond ServiceNow. So again, now from a public cloud standpoint, Azure, Alibaba, AWS, and Google Cloud. Very simply, you can be able to connect into those, see your SAP systems on top of that before we automate, whether it's SAP, database, OS, or even at the IaaS, infrastructure as a service, or public cloud layer as well. Now, a little bit about architecture before we dive into the system. So the way this works is this is an on-premise solution, meaning that it sits in control, or it sits in your environment, so you are in control of the data. There's no transactional data coming into the Avantra. There's no data coming to Avantra as a business. It's not a SaaS solution, so it remains within your control. It can be up in a public cloud. It could be in one of your data centers. So on the right-hand side of things, if the network connection is in place, we focus on things such as being able to drop an agent that reads the OS, goes directly into the database, and goes into SAP. For an ABAP-based stack, what that means is there's two transports. The first is our namespace. So again, we're not utilizing things like CCMS or things of that nature. A lot of those checks, the majority of them are pre-built and proprietary to us. The second is a role and profile, really limiting that user that's going to be connected into the ABAP stack to make sure that it's not pulling data that it should be pulling, just system health data. If there's not a direct network connection in place, we focus on the left-hand side of the screen where we see there will be, if there's not a direct network connection, we can put a mix of gateways and proxies in place to be able to show that they can connect in. From there, once all the data is kind of coming into the Avantra master, we focus on how do you get into that data. So it's just a web browser. There's no client that has to be deployed out to people's laptops or computers. It's just a web browser that connects in. You can limit who can see and do what. You can different levels of access for more junior level employees, more senior level employees, and what they can do. If you want to provide dashboards to different business units, so on and so forth, of course, you can do that as well. And of course, you can do this on the palm of your hand as well. So yes, we do have iOS apps, we do have Android apps where you can be able to do everything I'm going to show you today and more straight from your phone. So with that, I'm going to go into the system and provide a quick demonstration. Let me just quick minimize this. So as we first get into the system here, what you'll see is we've got a list of SAP systems. Now to connect a new system in, again, there's just an agent that's going to get deployed. There's some transports that are going to go in, but really that's pretty much it. From here, we just allow that system to come back in. So we just identify some key components in here, such as the SID, put the system role, whatever that is, and if it's an ABAP-based system, what have you. And what ends up happening here is Avantra then recognizes what kind of system it is. So you can see here there's different components, even from a database perspective, HDB being HANA database in Avantra terms. The cool thing about this is there's intelligence built behind this, where Avantra then recognizes what kind of system it is and then puts the correct, what we call parameters in place. And you see it actually puts the default value. What that means for you, no time managing templates and trying to roll out templates and watching templates overwrite each other. That does not exist, right? Because it's all rule driven. Avantra's got it in place for you. And if you want to override or add on top of those rule sets, you can. So you can have a rule set that says, all right, if it's a BW system running on HANA, it's going to automatically put the ABAP checks in place, automatically put the BW checks in place, automatically put the HANA and the Linux checks in place, all with zero effort from you. It's all intelligent driven and rule based. From here, these parameters roll up into our checks. So each check is made up of multiple parameters. Again, these aren't CCMS, these are, majority of them are proprietary to us. And here you'll see we have two different kinds of checks, RTM, which is real-time monitoring, and daily checks. Now they're very similar, a lot of them are similar in nature, but what's happening here is the daily checks are running just once, and once per day, and we're pulling more data. That's meant more for reporting purposes. The real-time monitoring perspective, this is essentially just what's going on throughout the day. Every couple minutes it's going out and collecting data throughout all these checks. So why we do this, first off, it keeps that agent very, very slim. There are solutions in the market right now that are doing full pulls like we do on our daily check, and they're doing them every couple of minutes. Can you imagine the amount of load that's putting on that system and on that network? So we don't do that. However, what we do is throughout the day, we're constantly looking at these and we're just pulling smaller amounts of data. And that allows us for our real-time monitoring. So this is what's real-time monitoring. It's going to kick off our automations. It's going to kick off notifications. It's going to be for dashboard. Daily are meant more for reporting purposes. Yes, we can send out PDF-based reports automatically, periodically, so daily, weekly, monthly, what have you. Or you can have an interactive report where you can actually come in and look at historical days back in history and say, like, hey, what happened at this time last year? You can actually see that report from last year and click in and dive around in there. And again, if you'd like to see that, we'd be more than happy to show you in a longer demonstration. So now that we have our technical monitoring in place, again, these are all proprietary, and it's all automatically driven and put in here for you. We can also go above and beyond this as well. So maybe there are some specific things you want to look at. Let's just say you want to look at some specific IDOCs, right? So they're very, very specific in nature. You can come in here and actually add specifics, such as specific IDOCs, specific PI-COM channels, things that you want to watch, or maybe if a specific batch job fails, they want to go to one person instead of a second person, right? So you can get into specifics as well, and not just from an SAP layer. This could be at the database layer, could be at the OS layer. It could even be non-SAP. You want to ping a printer at the end of assembly line. Perhaps you want to see if bank interface is available from the ECC production system. Perhaps you want to parse a log file of a legacy homegrown application that you have. We can do all of that because we understand that an SAP landscape is not just the SAP software. There's all these different components and bolt-ons and add-ons and interfaces that all come along with an SAP ecosystem. And we want to make sure that within Avantra, you've got a single pane of glass in that dashboard, which we'll touch on it just a little bit, that you'll be able to see all that information. Now, above and beyond just the technical checks, we also can get into graphing and charting capabilities, right? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today. Where I do want to spend some time on is not just looking at historical graphs and charts. I want to see what's going to happen out into the future. So we start to look at some of these trending capabilities, and I'm going to pick, let's just say use disk space. It could be file system space, database size, database, total size. But for here, I'm just going to look at use disk space as a whole per server. So here are all my different servers. And I'm going to say, given the last year's worth of data, where are we going to be at by June 30th, 2022? So here you can see my current size. If things continue to grow as they have in the last year, by June 30th, 2022, we're going to be at 46.34 gigs, which is an increase of 40%. So this becomes very, very beneficial. If you are in charge of planning and budgeting for next year, do you need to procure more hardware? Or if you're up in a public cloud, how big is my database going to be? You can plug in your numbers you have with your public cloud provider and easily start to understand and predict what your budgetary needs might be for next year. Now, if you're not in charge of budgets, this is also certainly important because you can also alert on this as well. So not only can we alert on, yes, when something is 90% full or when there's 10 gigs left, yes, of course we can. But now we can also say, alert me when there's 100 hours before this fills up, or when there's 15 hours before it fills up, remind me. So very, very powerful and beneficial. Now, moving beyond these technical capabilities, we can also get into what we call our our changes. And this is really meant for two purposes: being able to see what changes we track from a technical or basis perspective, right? So not changes within transports, but those technical changes that we might make from an administrative standpoint, and also from an audit perspective. So if someone opens up a client, did that client get closed back down again, right? So you're probably, if you're an organization that gets audited, you're going to get audited on that. So being able to, after a year, come in here, and Avantra's watching this 24/7, and be able to say, all right, how many times we open up a client? Did we create, new database user? All of those things are going to be in here, and you can easily just say, all right, so are things locked back down? Okay, they're not. Let's go lock them back down. Or is our documentation in place? All right, so Avantra can handle all that for you. There's also the scenario, and I'll be the first to admit it, and it's kind of shameful, but you make some memory settings at the profile parameter level. And 4 months down the road, the system crashes. And then you say, well, what have we changed in the last 6 months? You can come in here, open it up, the changes, and you can actually see everything that you changed. This is the example of maybe not so memory changes, but you can actually see what's changed. You need to change those back, so on and so forth. So as you can see from a monitoring standpoint, very, very easy to configure. Again, just a couple of minutes to get everything up and running. It's really essentially as fast as you can put an agent down and put some transports in place and load a user. Avantra pretty much does everything else for you. Everything I've shown you up to this point, fully automated. As soon as Avantra connects, everything up to that I've shown you, except for some of those custom checks, it's all going to be done for you automatically. But now, let's say you want to go above and beyond just monitoring. Now you want Avantra to help start to manage some of your systems too. So what we're going to do is go in and kick off some automations. And the first example I'm going to talk about is, let's say, starting and stopping a hybrid environment. So let's just say that we have an environment where we have ECC up in, let's say, ECC on-prem and BW up on a public cloud. Right? It doesn't matter which one. It's up on a public cloud. And I want to stop all these systems. So the first thing I want to do is stop ECC on-prem. And I just come in here and select my stop SAP system and database. Now, these are all pre-built. These are all in here for you automatically. So you don't have to prep all of this. It's all ready to go for you. Come in here, we're going to select that system. It could be one system. It could be 1,000 systems. Doesn't matter. In this example, we're just going to pick one. And if this orchestration step stops, I'm going to pick retry, and we'll select apply. Now the next step is to stop BW up in the public cloud. And I also don't only want to stop SAP in the database, which I'm doing on the on-prem thing. I also want to bring down the public cloud server as well. I'm going to say stop BW and public cloud server as well. So I'm going to come in here and say stop SAP system, database, and servers. All right, I'll select my systems. Again, one system, 1,000 systems, doesn't matter. And if this fails, I'm just going to have it stop. All right, so now the cool thing is I've got my orchestration all set, ready to go here. I've got my system selected. I could activate this on a schedule. It could be every third Saturday of the month if that's what I wanted to do. Maybe it's every first Tuesday of the month. Whenever your maintenance windows are, Avantra is going to take care of all your stopping and starting. You can bring systems down to specific orders, all of that stuff. You can bring down 100 systems at once, 1,000 systems at once, however you want to do it. So that's one example of this becomes very beneficial. Another might be we're back in our one particular SAP system. Let's say we're running on a public cloud server again, and here our work processes start to fill up. And for everyone that's technical from a basis perspective knows that if your dialog work processes fill up, this is not something that the infrastructure public cloud is going to notice. It's not something that OS monitoring is going to catch. It's not something that database monitoring is going to catch. This has to be an SAP monitoring functionality it's going to catch, right? So Avantra recognizes, hey, there's not enough dialog work processes. We're going to automatically go out and start up a sleeping application server. So in here, that's going to be start public cloud server. Be my first step. Let's start my cloud server. That is select what server it is I wanted to start up. And then the next thing is to start up that additional sleeping application server. So the app server is already built. It's just off to the side sleeping. So it's not costing us much money, very, very minimal with it being shut down in the public cloud. And let's see here, start instance here. So here's my additional application server. I select which one it is. Perhaps it's this one or multiple of them. And now that's fully automated. Avantra recognizes there's not enough dialog work processes. It knows that if that's the case, it goes and starts this automation to start that process up. But now let's go even further. Let's say now that we've got we can now scale out, which is essentially what we just built out there. We can start and stop systems on a periodic schedule or whatever we want. But now the business has come to us and said, all right, we have one super important batch job. It's very important. Every other batch job in the world, I don't want you to rerun. I just want you to report it to me. But if this one specific batch job fails, I want you to go rerun it. So within Avantra, we can, again, we're going back to our custom checks where we can identify specifics. I'm going to call that specific batch job out. It says, if that job fails, I want it to rerun that job. So within Avantra now, one of our other automation steps is the ability to call or to trigger an event. Now, we can use Java code to code outside of SAP in Avantra and call back into an RFC to take action. But that's not really recommended, right? The best thing you can possibly do is keep the code within the ABAP layer. And what you do is call an event ID within the ABAP stack. So whatever that event ID is, it's a rerun job. And now Avantra recognizes that that particular batch job failed. It's going to go out and trigger to rerun that particular job as well. So that's calling back into SAP. We can do the same thing at the database layer and at the OS layer. If Avantra recognizes that something is occurring, go out and run a script, right? So maybe it's cleaning up a file system, right? If you got a file system, there's these specific files that, if the system starts to fill up, it can remove, these files that are over 30 days old or whatever. Very, very easy to script that out. You can add that within Avantra as part of your orchestration step as well. So very simple from that perspective. Again, it could be a database perspective as well. You can call into a database and take action as well. So really kind of whatever you want to do, this becomes a very, very powerful platform. If you do have ServiceNow, you can actually use the ServiceNow workflow to get approvals as well. So Avantra recognizes something's about to happen. Maybe it needs to go to a certain person for approval or 3 people for approval. They click, OK, and ServiceNow contacts Avantra to continue out the process as well. So very powerful from that perspective as well. So one other area that we can automate as well, we get into our kernel upgrades. All right, so this is fairly new. within the Avantra system here. And basically what we can do is fully automate the kernel upgrade. So you can do kernel updates and upgrades essentially within just a couple of seconds. You can do hundreds or thousands of systems. So the way it works is SAP has a new kernel, you bring that down, you upload it into Avantra, and then you select what systems you want to go run on. So no more having to plan these huge long maintenance windows to do kernel updates. Avantra is going to do it for you very quickly and very easily. Now it's got a couple of steps of what it does. First off, it does some prereq steps. It makes sure that the kernel bundle that you've brought down is the correct kernel for this SAP system. So there is that check in place for you. And as you can see, this does a bunch of other things as well to make sure that the steps are ready to go. It does a prepare step where essentially it's going to do a backup of the current kernel directory. So if we do need to roll back in a later step, we can. It's going to alert the users of the stack saying, hey, the system's coming down. Please make sure to save your work and exit out. And then it does the downtime phase, right? It brings the system down, does the kernel switch, brings the system back up, and that does a verification. It runs through some commands. Did everything work as it should? Are there any errors? Whether it's copy errors or sync errors or files not copied, it does a handful of different checks. And if everything's okay, off you go, and your system is now fully updated with the newest kernel with very minimal steps from you. No waking up in the middle of the night, so on and so forth. For any reason, if there was an error, it can do a rollback, so it'll roll that back, and it does a cleanup step as well, making sure that everything gets cleaned up as well. So now we start to take a look at all the monitoring checks in place. We've got our automation checks in place. We're constantly updating our kernel as well, but we want to add some transparency to everything. So we get into what's called our dashboarding. Now, within Avantra, you can have as many dashboards as you want. The idea is that everyone that has access to Avantra can build out dashboards. They can share them with their peers, so on and so forth. The cool thing about our dashboards, though, is it's not just looking at single checks. You can actually group data together. So, like we see here, we have just this gateway check. All this is doing is just making sure that the Avantra gateway to perhaps one system is up and running. That's it. It's one check of one system. However, we can also group checks together. So here we've got my production servers. I want to make sure that all 28 of my production servers are up and running. So I just group them together very easily. Same thing with my SAP systems. I've got 7 SAP production systems. I want to know how are they acting, right, just as a whole. So I can easily group those together. But I can go above that too. I can say, all right, just show me CPU. I want CPU across all systems. Easily can do that. Here I've got file systems. Anywhere I want to click in, I can click in and see, in this case, which 2 file systems are being a problem. I can do this over and over again with whatever checks. Not only can I just do one check, I could group them together as CPU file systems and backups all together. So, all right, if it's an OS level check, I want to see those. I want to see out of the 90 SAP checks that are happening, these 5 are super important to me. So I can identify what those 5 are and have them group out into a single dashlet from here as well. So there's all different ways you can kind of slice and dice the data to make sure that it is important to you. You can also do the starting and stopping automations in here as well, but that becomes very beneficial is if you're bringing down, let's say, non-production systems, including the public cloud servers every weekend, let's say they're not needed. So to help control your cloud costs, every Friday night, you're going to bring down SAP, the database, and the public cloud server, then bring them up on Monday, right? So you're kind of helping just bring them down for 2 days can really help control your cloud costs. But let's say at that same time, a developer on Saturdays, is falling a little bit behind, or they want to get ahead of their schedule. So they come in on a Saturday and they go, oh shoot, I can't do my work because all the systems are down. Well, instead of preventing a phone call saying, hey, I can't get in, can someone please start up the system? There can be a button on the dashboard here that they essentially just click the button, starts up the system, and away they go. So with that, I think that's pretty much everything I was hoping to talk about today in our very short demonstration. Again, this was a fairly short demonstration. Just wanted to give a little taste of everything that Avantra is capable of. And before we go, just a couple other quick notes. If you do want to get in contact with us, you can contact us at www.avantra.com. If you do have questions, also feel free to email us at info@avantra.com as well. And everyone participating today is entered into a raffle for a great prize. So keep an eye on your email. Our team will be emailing you out if you are the winner. So thank you for your time today. Again, my name is Tyler Constable, part of the Avantra family, and looking forward to hopefully talking with you more on some of the other capabilities that Avantra has. Thank you.